Alright, to the people joining on YouTube, I'm a League of Legends coach. We do VOD reviews mostly and coaching. So in case you're interested in this sort of content, check out this video and check out the socials, link below the video, so especially the stream, because these reviews we do live on stream. So in case you're interested and want to have your questions answered, just join the stream whenever it's live. Can check out my Twitter or Discord, and then you will get notified. Otherwise, let's jump right into the series. We're trying to catch up a little bit. And we're going to start with Golden Guardians Cloud 9. I still need to start my epic ban, so give me 1 second here. By the way, welcome to everyone streaming. For everyone joining the stream. I'm the person streaming. Anyway, right? Golden Guardian C9. Bans wise, let's actually see what they're going to draft. It is NA against NA, and that is way too loud still. Let's make that a little bit quieter. Instantly onto 10%. I hope that's gonna be fine. At least let me know if the audio is maybe a little bit too quiet, so I can maybe adapt that. Anyway, Golden Guardian C9. C9 for me is very much about Berserker later, like carrying, and then the rest of the draft I'm actually unsure what they do. I feel like they do different things sometimes. Wait, where the heck? It looks like I knocked down my armrest. Well, that's not optimal. Anyway, right? I feel like C9, I'm not quite sure what they're doing. Whereas Golden Guardians, they always try to go for Unga Bunga compositions. So if I'm C9, right, I'm very heavily prioritizing Jinx early. And to just play front and back into mostly what Golden Guardian plays. I feel like if you build good front and back compositions into Golden Guardian, you're usually in a very decent spot. Because I feel like the only thing Golden Guardians is really good at is team fighting. So if you take that away from them, I think they're kind of screwed. Little ban is really whatever. This champion is complete garbage in my opinion. Vi ban, Nidalee ban, can be okay with not flex. Or if you've got a good Nidalee player, I feel like Blaber is like kind of okay at it. Not necessarily the biggest fan. The only thing I kind of like is Nidalee with Jinx, because Nidalee is like plus 60% attack speed, right? So that is pretty good. We've got Sion, we've got Annie. I think Annie is a very good ban against Golden Guardian. Same on the perma skirmish. This sort of champion allows them to perma skirmish, and it's a flex pick. Sion, a bit interesting. I'm wondering if you just ban Cassandra against Golden Guardians. I probably would. I think Cassandra is what. Oh, okay. Cannon also makes sense, right? Cannon also goes into the direction of perma skirmish. What would I do if I'm GG? Well, first of all, I pick Jinx, because for me, you just first pick Jinx, it's just broken. Are there ways to counter Jinx? Yes, but people don't really do it, and Jinx is just a very strong champion overall. Plus, Jinx on red side is even more powerful. What I would do as Golden Guardians is either pick Jinx, or just do Cassandra flex pick, I think, is what I prefer. Or is there anything else, like, majorly open right now? And I think there is. Maokai is fine, but I'm wondering if this is, like, GG waste for how they want to play, right? So there's Tristana. That can work well with Maokai, right? So if you guys watch the other streams, I'm a pretty big fan of Maokai, especially if you pick it with Tristana. I think that's really fucking broken. Watching these games now feels like we're in preseason at the moment, and hey man, it does, right? Doesn't it? I feel like the game has really hard changed. And welcome to the stream, Adonski. Welcome to the stream. So what would I do if I'm C9? Well, I'm Giga picking away Cassandra, and I'm gonna pick Jinx. And if they go Tristana, probably going to look for Tristana counter here. But I'm just very scared of Tristana, and if you go Jinx, they should end up going Tristana as well. However, C9 for sure shouldn't go Feliers, because Jinx plus Tristana here, plus Maokai as Peel with double outranging hyper carry, I think you're just going to be completely doomed in draft. So Cassandra I like, and you should match Jinx with it. For me, 1 or 2 is always Jinx Cassandra or Jinx Gragas. Prioritizing a Feliers I really dislike. Let's see if C9 has a specific strategy for it, and I know Berserker is a very good Aphelios player, but I do believe that Jinx is just a better champion, and Jinx Tristana here, I think you're just gonna get shit on. Jinx Tristana, Insta Slam, Golden Guardians 1-0. Jinx, good. Jinx, good. Jinx comes to no surprise, right? Everyone knows that is coming. But please Insta pick Tristana. Please Insta pick Tristana. It's similar to the last series you watched, right? I don't know if it was the JDGT1 series, where I was really annoyed by Tristana being open. Was it game 4 or was it game 3? I think game 4 they ended up banning it. Or was it game 3? Wait, is it even the right series? No, it's not the right series, is it? Why did people ban Jace when they shouldn't have? Was it the JDGT1 series? I don't fully remember. Oh yeah, it was game 2. Where you banned Jace instead of Tristana, like an idiot. No flame. right? But the Tristana here is really powerful because, of course, you're already going to front or back. Maokai very happy, right? Maokai wants to play isolating mid second, just make sure mid lane is fine, not really playing onto it. Tristana usually gets pushed. Tristana is very, very safe, right? And then if you have Jinx and Tristana against Aphelios, he gets double outrange. Aphelios, sad smiley face, right? Other counters to Tristana, yes, they are. But it doesn't really matter, does it? Insta-lock Tristana. And they could decide to pick a mage here because Cassandra against Tristana is not that good, right? They could decide to go for a mage counter against Tristana. You can't really do Cassiopeia because there's also Jinx, right? And then you're like really low range. You could look for something like Syndra. Like Ahri can perform like decently well, right? But usually we see Syndra. But Syndra is not that easy of a champion. And then you already put Cassandra to top lane. You just match Cassandra with tank. You counter pick support if you can. Although C9 should, of course, counter pick support themselves. There's no reason not to. And then I think you're in a very, very good position. Jace flex pick is like basically what I said is bait. Okay? So you can do Jace. And in game 2 of JDG T1, JDG also banned Jace. And it is a flex pick, but I don't care. Jace is a shit champion, whereas Tristana is a broken champion. I mean, Jace maybe isn't a shit champion, right? But it's not nearly as good as Tristana is. Tristana just gives you way more. And if you argue, well, Jace is a flex to top lane, well, Tristana can also be a flex to top lane. And if you're going to tell me a top laner cannot play Tristana, well, if he can play Jace, he can learn Tristana. If he's mechanically able to learn this champion, he can learn Tristana. Tristana is a very easy champion. Just because in an 80 carry top lane doesn't mean people can't play it. Lulu can be a bit bait, right? So you're gonna hyper carry Aphelios. Only problem is if you hyper carry Aphelios against outranging comp, you lack the engage, and the Aphelios might not be as strong. So that is always something I'm a little bit scared of when I see the Aphelios Lulu into Jinx. I think it can be okay. I think it's also quite risky. I'm wondering if you just ban fresh Blitzcrank here. I feel like the other roles are just way too open here. Like Jace could just still be flex pick, right? Blitzcrank ban I would ban for sure. I'm just wondering if you match it with a fresh ban. And then as Golden Guardians, mainly what I'm looking for is maybe jungle. I just gotta ban like, I don't even know what you ban. Are you just gonna ban Kha'Zix to Johnny? Oh, I think they're still looking for Tristana. Are they still looking for Tristana? I mean, I guess Syndra also works in the Jace. But come on, man. Please. Just pick Tristana. Tristana's just a way better champion. Because Cassandra's not bad against Jace. Cassandra is very, very good at regenning up. Okay, Blitzcrank a fresh ban coming through, right? Not a surprise there. I think that's pretty good. I'm just wondering if you're gonna ban Malphite because you've got Jace. And we're gonna do Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix was like the one jungle champion I really thought about here. Was it just Sejuani? Are you just gonna match Sejuani Maokai? Well, Sejuani Cassandra can be pretty decent. I never understood why Trist is on the value for solo lanes. I can understand for bot lane because they're very hard matchups. But 1v1 there are many good answers, I know. Yes. Right? So there are like answers into Tristana, but they're not that insane. And they usually are about Tristana jumping in. Right? So when we look at Cassiopeia, we look at like partially Victor, right? These champions are good against Tristana because they counter jumping in. Well, guess what? You're just not going to jump in. And if you play double hyper carry here, the rest of your comp is thrown it back. Aphelios doesn't enjoy playing the game. You hyper carrying Aphelios now just sucks, right? You have the Cassandra here, now it's just more whatever. Right? Cassandra's still gonna be fine, but it's not gonna be as good. And that is the power of outranging. And that is really why I dislike Jace, instead of something like Tristana. If I'm going Guardians against this sort of composition, I'm picking Renata X. Right, I really like Renata with Jinx. I think it's really undervalued. There's so many melees. Just go Renata. I feel like in a lot of cases, Aphelios is maybe a little bit forced to play cleanse, because otherwise he might just get a bit too screwed. So doing that I don't think is bad. Hey, you're just gonna put Cassandra onto mid and pick me off right now? Not sure. What is? Ooh, Swain would be interesting. Actually, Swain is quite interesting. Nautilus is the boring way. Few people forget that just has one of the high ranges once she's high level, which she gets even faster on solo lanes. Exactly. 80 carries on solo lanes is really OP. 80 carries on solo lanes is really OP, right? So in Seri Sivir, when Seri Sivir was handshaked, you could have just put Sivir onto mid lane. She would have been fine, just clear wave, counter Zeri. And now Zeri just doesn't enjoy the game. Sad smiley face, right? Or you could have picked Zeri and Sivir together, and then enemy couldn't have a chance to like trade. That would have been pretty funny. Xayah is also like an option, right? Well, you could have like picked Xayah early. Lane sucks. You could have just put it towards mid lane because people just might pick Silas. There's a multitude of options you can do. Because AD carries with higher experience usually are very, very good. Especially if they scale very well with levels. Either by having high base damage, which Xayah has in my opinion, or of course Tristana. Because she's also very safe, right? So for isolating, she works very, very well. Imagine you just had Tristana into Jace, man. Like, look, you see this game here, and you already know Jace is going to be completely and utterly useless. He's only there to have push for Maokai. But just go Tristana then, and you have better scaling. Plus, you have a more flexible champion. Plus, it is even more hard carried into your fellies. Because of course, you could argue, well, Jace is also like outranging, right? And he sort of is, but he's also more vulnerable. So you have weaker from the back. Why? Draven is also very good AD for solo lanes, but I suppose most solo lanes can't learn it that easily, right? Yeah. Right, so Draven can be quite good in solo lanes, especially against melee laners. However, the problem, and it's also like one of the counters to Tristana mid lane, by the way. You could pick Draven into it. But Draven is actually hard. Tristana isn't. Right, so Draven is harder to play, significantly. And even harder to play to a high level. Plus, Draven is a lot more vulnerable. Tristana has bullshit mechanic of having a jump. And a jump that you can sort of dodge GC with. And you've got auto knock people away. And you easily get push. And if someone Ramsey bombed the entire turret. Tristana is an insanely good mid laner for competitive. She does so many things, especially against a low range AD carry pick. If Beatrice is way safer, she's ungankable if played right. Yeah, she's really ungankable. Right, so you can try to match scaling and you can try to match push like champion like Syndra can, right? And I think these are like all decent options. But Tristana is still like a good way for you to pick. Like it's still such a good champion in my opinion. But she's so underrated. And I don't understand why. Okay, let's jump into the game though. We still have Maokai though. We still try to play isolating midsection. So Golden Guardians, I'm really trying to wondering if you're gonna use strong level 1 with Nautilus to look for an invade, to place some vision on enemy jungle to spot. Because with Sejuani Silas, right, we know that they will very hard try to play onto mid. We saw JDG like a very good example of how JDG played it against T1 in game 5. While Kanavi dropped a lot of XP economy early game to make sure Silas is fine in these sort of lanes, right? Make sure Silas is being chilling. And Silas was against Nautilus, so it's a bit different, a lot more gank vulnerable than Jace, for example, is. So in a way, you could argue that Cena can also play it in a way how Mad Lions would technically play it, like when I still played in the EU, right? With maximizing jungle economy early on, so he can rush to 6. Because when you play in Able, it's all about threatening enemy mid lane, right? And then we have to ask ourselves, okay, how do we threaten enemy mid lane? And that is by being able to kill them, right? And it is easier to kill people when you've got Sejuani ult, obviously, right? Plus, if you're level 5 and Maokai is level 6, right, you might not even be able to win the economy. You might not even win the skirmish due to them having an advantage there, right? So trying to maximize your level efficiency there can also be a good idea. Plus, when we play Isolate, right, what does it usually mean? Well, it usually means that enemy jungle has to make sure mid lane is fine, so he has to invest time. If he has to invest time, we can use that time to farm up, get level 6 earlier, and then use that advantage to actually play onto midsection very heavily. Either way though, we should try to look for ways to get ourselves information in level 1. And that is usually the case if we have good level 1. So that is usually what we ask ourselves, right? Do we have good level 1 somewhere to possibly walk in and scout the vision? And again, Silas, I understand why it can be a bit scary. So I wouldn't mind 5-pointing. 5-pointing, just dropping vision for them level 1. I think that's okay. But of course, scouting Sejuani level 1 is an easier way to do it. I mean, not necessarily easier, right? But it's better. It's better to know where enemy jungle is than actually scouting them gank. Okay, we see Classic. Raptor start, not a surprise there. I think Jinx Auto the scan contest push if they actually land a hook or two. I feel like Zven has like some good map read, but this laning has not been that insane. Because I don't like him getting hooked like this. Because they still don't get pushed, and then he's gonna be stuck in a lane. Yeah, look, like why is Zven walking up? You don't get pushed against Jinx. Like, it's so weird for me. Like, people can test push against Jinx as if Ellie's Lulu. Blaber's looking 3-cam to the top side. Interesting. Licorice, nice. Like, these plays I really dislike, though, right? This I dislike. Why do I dislike it? Well, because getting your top lane ahead, it doesn't really matter. And I possibly understand the idea of trying to make sure you get Fiora out of the game, right? Because Fiora might be a problem to you later. I understand the idea. But for me, this game is all about threatening mid. So going for a flip gank outside of mid lane for me feels bad, because this is time you can invest to get level 6 earlier. And if you get level 6 earlier, you can impact mid lane earlier. And for me, that is more important than actually looking for any sort of other gank. So I'm not a big fan of like going for these sort of ganks. River does the classical of 3-camp into the hovering mid. I really dislike this Jace ward. Why does Jace only have such a shit ward? Because instead of this ward, he could have just warded level 1 if he wanted to. And I think actually EMENES zone him out. Not be able to go for the ward level 1. Still could have done it. Maybe he doesn't want to show where he wards, but now he shows where he wards anyway, right? So I'm not a big fan. And then River just matches it. Tries to get a hit because of first strike, but yeah. You see Blaber there with 3 camps, you know he took 3 camps sake, and Rebuff, you know he took all of his topside. But yeah, like this is what I meant, right? River has to invest time to make sure his mid laner is safe. This time you can use to get yourself level 6 earlier. If you get level 6 early, and Sejuani should be on the last camp right now, right? Possibly be able to impact bot side, which is unrealistic, right? But it is possible. Although, of course, if Sejuani doesn't get scouted, Stixxay is probably just going to drop ward in River, and then it's going to be quite hard to gank, right? But there is a possibility. But either way, right, maximizing your level 6 into being able to actually threaten a Jace, for me, is significantly more important than finding a top lane gank. I'd really love what C9's idea is of it, but that is like sort of my understanding of the game, because it's all about enabling Silas. And top lane gank is like nice to get, right, but what is the chance? So I'm wondering what the scouting was. How the heck does he find this play? They even spot him, or does he dash over the wall? No, they spot him, but they just get chased down. No, they're just not able to get out fast enough. I mean, that is pretty crazy. That is pretty crazy that he gets this like that. Because he's dark shit as well, right? Finding this play is insane. Because again, right, what is C9's team comp all about? It is all about enabling mid. Is Silas, that just has lost chapter for Darkseal 6 minute 4, is a bit of a problem for Golden Guardians. A tiny bit of a problem. River gang, stop. Overall, right, if you try to invest time top lane after you're clear, Raptor start is bad. I understand Raptor start, I understand that it's like a little bit, like it's nice to do, but starting on buff is actually not that bad. But if you're going to invest time top lane, you're not allowed to Raptor start. You're not. You're not allowed to Raptor start.
I was so impressed with how Golden Guardians were playing these first few levels. They were getting so many advantages in the bot lane 2v2, and then they overstepped. Something that we have seen from them this tournament.
It keeps happening, right? People just automatically do it. But it is easily punishable if you have to invest time top lane.
Behind where Huhi had rooted Berserker, so Berserker did not get stopped with those. And he had purple gun. So the purple gun slow autos there, keeping them a little bit in range, allowing Zven for the chase down on Lulu. Glitter lances.
I mean, bottom wave is bouncing. You can try to play onto it to at least make sure that Jace can't look to go for push into hover bot lane to help out the freeze. I'll be curious to hear the comms of the plan going into the game and how much it differs from what we deem right. Yeah. I mean, that is like the interesting thing, right? Because I understand the idea if they think it's logical for them to get a kill. Because if they think it's logical for them to get a kill, it makes sense to gank it, right? But from an outside perspective, the chance of them finding it with what they need to achieve in a game, in my opinion, is like a little bit mismatched. Blaber Giga Chat. Giga Chatto. Yeah, this is interesting though, right? So Berserker actually cycles purple first. Berserker cycles purple first. I mean, it's still like level 6, right? So it doesn't really count already. But sometimes we see cycling blue first, so they can play red, white, green into blue, which is a bit interesting. Because you get green, blue, which can be very, very good, but you lose out in blue into red. Lose out when it comes to blue into red, which makes it harder to actually contest the mid lane push against something like the Jinx.
And also, I would say for Cloud9, keep focusing on bottom side. Oh, yeah, Blaber clear from top down.
Because after blue you would have purple, and that's not obviously not good if you want to go for a team fight.
900 gold lead, not much more than what it was earlier already, so things haven't gone any worse.
Mid section is quite exploded though. Blaber is gonna hit level 6 soonish. I'm wondering if he's just gonna do his top side into already looking for mid lane gank. Herald coming up, of course, by the way, C9 securing their first dragon, which is very, very nice. Jinx Norton is jamming up, so Blaber is trying to look for something. He doesn't find it. They rotate up. Now what you're just gonna do is you're gonna pressure bot lane and wait till Jinx to like check again. And then based on if they're already on it or not, you might decide into still looking to contest, or you're gonna force send it onto the cross map. And one thing I like C9 doing is force sending it on the cross map. I think that's very, very undervalued. Jace has to instantly hover, and you still get a lot out of it. You still get platings. You lose the Herald, yes, but you still get platings, you get CS. Which is not bad. It's not bad. Because maybe even mid lane loses CS due to having to match bot lane. Because you're going to pressure bot lane on a stack wave into platings. And look how hard the turret got chunked. So it starts on 5 platings, so Felix gets 2 platings, and like, gets half to like the next plating again, because of this play. Well, Herald technically still is worth more gold and experience, possibly. But it's not bad for you. It's not bad for you. Plus, you always have to look at, okay, who actually gonna get some of the plating gold. Because I think Felix get most of it. And the Felix economy is a lot more important than Maokai economy. Although actually Demonic is pretty good. Like, so if it's like Sejani, it'd be worse. Or like Tank Maokai. Or Demonic Empress hitting that item is actually quite a decent spike. They're swapping, okay. Interesting. So we actually see Golden Guardians to the T1 strategy. I'm just gonna call it the T1 strategy because I saw T1 do it. I'm just gonna call it the T1 strategy, right? And the T1 strategy is you don't actually force swap when it comes to Herald. Usually, T1 sometimes does. But you force swap after Herald. Right? So now you have Herald. And you got a threatened topside to it. Which can be very good for multiple reasons. A bit unusual to go Zoputs and Silas, no? What if you've got Sejuani? Maybe. Because when you've got Sejuani, they're more inclined to actually go for Mercs, right? I don't think it's bad. I think Zorkboots are really underrated. I feel like some laners have like a very big focus on always getting Lucidity Boots, when I think it's kind of bait. Especially if enemy composition is all about you one-shotting them, right? So fights are very explosive. So are you actually gonna get multiple like cooldown durations out, or is it all about one-shotting? And I think it's more about one-shotting. I don't really mind the Mercs. It's just often a bit easier to get Lucidity Boots, I feel like. But it's a good point, it's a good point. Now, I'm a very big fan of the swap. For multiple reasons, right? Why can the swap be good? For multiple reasons. Well, number one, C9 might not instantly answer, and then you can completely bomb into it, right? So, if you don't have to place Herald onto mid, right? So, let's say C9 has Herald. For them, it might not be as good to go for the swap strategy, because getting mid lane T1 is going to be very hard for C9's comp, and it's very important to keep it for Golden Guardians, right? They're from the back comp. They're vulnerable, right? They would really like to get the T1, and they also have a lot of wave to keep their T1, right? And they'd in mid lane, and they'd really like to and it's also really hard to get against them because they have a lot of wave clear, right? So for C9, I think the swap strategy wouldn't be as good. But considering you don't necessarily have to get the T1 against Cloud9, or it's like a bit easier to get because you have better siege, the swap strategy can be very, very powerful. Also due to the fact that often, like one thing you can try to do, and sometimes C1 does, is when enemy jungle clears down, they try to go for the strategy. So your bot side, so their bot side camps are still up, and now enemy jungle has to match top side. So it's also very bad for his economy sometimes. Yeah, Jinx at least gets it good. Wait, I didn't even see that. Wait, how the heck did MSI lose the 1v1? How the heck did MSI lose the 1v1? Huh? Okay, that is really awkward. Oh, that is really awkward. Oh, I'd be a bit tilted if I'm MSI. Like, just Q ult, man.
For his support here, but it's still gonna be a kill nonetheless over to Stixxay.
Like, just Q ult on my chain.
Run away in a single direction from that Maokai. Remember, those buffs to the ult, they made it so much faster that brought him back into the meta. Makes it so difficult
He
for
doesn't flash my chain, he should be dead.
chance of sticking around and surviving it, but even he is not tanking enough.
Okay, so they actually play for one more plate and then probably just gonna reswap. In case C9 answers, obviously. If they don't, you just don't. Again, we're playing onto mid first, right? We're playing onto mid on the side. We're playing able mid. It's even easier because the Silas is very, very fed. Very, very fed Silas. They're just gonna shift, you just don't care about top lane, you're just gonna play Drake. They're just gonna pick up second dragon. I don't mind. I guess, I don't mind. Of course, for C9, it's kind of nice to get these dragons because, in my opinion, they don't scale as good. So that can be a win condition, and it is mountain, right? So mountain is very, very powerful. Plus another advantage that you have is you play against Fiora. So the second you've got Soul as a win condition, well, now you get Fiora away from split pushing, right? And that can be very, very important. Although, of course, split pushing is one of the most useful things ever in the game. Sideline isn't, right? So people have the misconception of sideline being useless and not important when it's not. But it's not about sideline being a win condition. It's about having good sideline to enable you to get man advantage onto mid, to enable you to go for control, right? Oh man, that's really itchy. Berserker even being 1 gold ahead is actually pretty crazy. About team fights, how do team fights look? Well, both compositions saw the winner the first on objective. So Cloud9 can walk in, right? They've got decent champions to walk in, but you have the problem of a Feliz Lulu that really would prefer just standing on objective. I just hate Fiora. I really don't understand why you would ever go Fiora in this meta. I know it's Licorice, and he's like shitting even on some LPL top laners, but in some games. But come on, man, top lane, like, top lane counters don't matter. You just pick a top laner that is good for your team fight. Fiora seems like the most bait champion ever. Fiora to me is like one of the most bait champions ever. I really don't understand why you would ever go for that champ. I really don't understand why you would ever pick that champion here. I understand doing it in game 1 of a series because you can try to see if it works out. And possibly having a counter pick to Cassandra. But come on, man. Come on, just pick a tank. Who really gives a shit? Sadly, you just have Jace instead of a useful pick like Tristana, so you're just gonna get shit on here. Important objective section, you know? Sorry, I'm a bit tired. I'm gonna make myself another coffee after this game, I guess. So when it comes to this fight here, one thing that is very, very important is who gets the front and back here. The Golden Guardians is very aggressively going for push here, but they actually don't have teleports. So that is not their wave, right? So sidelining is important, but it's all about getting man advantage or control of midsection, right? So you have a turn here, you catch side lane, but you don't respect their turn. And you want to front and back it, right? You don't want to have a messy fight, they want to have a messy fight, and now this ends up as a messy fight. Very, very good there by EMENES, by the way. So this is a big imp by Golden Guardians. I have no idea why they're walking up here. Either you're going to use the timer here for Fiora to possibly shift towards mid already, which he does. Right, either you wait here, or just don't walk up. Gori does not have teleport. This is just an insane begin by Golden Guardians. That is not your turn in mid lane wave. And I understand them really trying to get this mid lane wave, and they've got Herald, right? But Herald matters in case the enemy can't engage onto you. And they can't if it's even man, right? Because Golden Guardians also has the winning front and back fight. If it's even man and you can front and back, Golden Guardian should still be in a position to win. But the problem that you have here is that it's not, right? So you place the Herald to actually get control, but now you're going to end up wasting your Herald, and you don't get control because you didn't have man advantage. So either shift earlier, or just don't go for the cringe play. I feel like it's a very, very bad play by Golden Guardians. Berserker has way too many chakrams.
and Berserker. Berserker with Crescendo having plenty of damage here with Blaber leading the way. He's 3-0-1 on this Aphelios now, and C9.
And now this is gonna be a problem. Why is it gonna be a problem? Because at this point, it's gonna be harder for Golden Guardian to get control of midsection. If they don't get control of midsection, they will not be first on objective. If they're not first on objective, they will probably not win a team fight. If they do not win the team fight on next dragon, you're gonna lose Mountain Soul, and losing Mountain Soul is basically losing the game. Right? So the very, very important thing for now as Golden Guardians is, number one, okay, is there any way for us to get back into the game for Mountain Dragon? Or at least make us get into a position where we have the items on Jinx. So I'm not sure like what itemization Jinx had here before she went base. Afterwards. So that I can tell. But for example, I would never try to go Zeal into like Infinity Edge at this spot, because I actually need to maximize my DPS for Mountain Dragon, because losing this Mountain Dragon will make sure that you just end up losing the game, right? So that is very, very important. So the question for me is, of course, is there any way for me to change how I can set up for Dragon, right? Is there a way for us to get a catch? Is there a way for us to get an extra economy until next Dragon? And the answer is not really. Right, so then the question is, well, how do I get control of midsection, right? Because I want to be first on objective. And the way you get control of midsection is by making sure you have man advantage. And by making sure you have man advantage is by making sure you push out silent and then shift. So Cloud9 actually taking Nash right now can be very, very good. Why? Because it will take the teleport. Cloud9 shouldn't even finish. First of all, right, they have to come into you, so this might be a good team fight, right? And either way, this is a really good play in my opinion. Why? Because Licorice has to use teleport. Why is that important? Well, that is important because they can't easily fix silent to get man advantage possibly. It's gonna be hard if you don't have teleport. And that is the only thing I care about at C9, because right now, I'm honestly in a decent spot. And I will have double teleport by Dragon, so I can hardcore pressure side lane. If you answer, I will TP, you cannot. So getting Licorice's TP right now already partly to set up a Mountain Dragon is very, very important. And either way, of course, going for Nash here is not necessarily that bad, because you've one of decent damage, and number two, they have to come into you, and number three, their comp kind of really giga sucks if they have to come into you, especially because Stixxay does not have his items yet. So Stixxay is not as strong yet as Aphelios. Aphelios has Infinity Edge here as well. Silas has 2 items, so really, really good to force this fight right now on the spike, and now this game is over, right? Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have any questions? Any askers in the chat? Any askers? Because they have Nash here, they will just push our top lane. And then if they don't finish, they will still have Mountain Soul here. And I guess they're just going to finish here. Nice, GG. It's just crazy how this... You're here, like gold-wise, you're still like in a pretty decent spot, right? You're like 2k gold behind. Right, no, you're like 2k gold behind. Or like 3k. Let's say 3k. You have 3... well, no, never mind. This is even after the fight already. Let's just say 3k anyway, right? So you're 3k gold behind. And they can just finish on Nash. They can just finish on Nash. Why can they finish on Nash? Because blue side composition just sucks. Now, which team do you prefer late game if the game goes in an even manner early game? Super late game, I think Jinx. Why do I think Jinx? Well, super late game, I think Jinx because your side laning is pretty decent, right? So getting caught there shouldn't really be that big of a problem. And you should be able to push up mid into side. Because the advantage you have with Jinx is you usually always get mid lane priority in case the game is even. And if you get mid lane priority and you're there first on objective, I think you're gonna outscale. Right, Fiora also scales like pretty well. But I don't think you giga outscale. Right, but I do believe that Jinx is just a better champion than Aphelios is. I think Aphelios is a very good champion. I think Aphelios is very strong. I think Jinx is giga OP. And of course, for lower levels, outside of like international level, Jinx is 10 times better than Aphelios. Aphelios is a very strong champion, but playing him to a level where he's actually in a spot where he can compete with Jinx is very, very, very hard. And of course, Aphelios is not a counter to Jinx, by the way. It's not a counter to Jinx. So blinding Aphelios when Jinx is open, in my opinion, is a bad decision. I understand picking Aphelios into Jinx, because I understand the argument of, well, Jinx is really strong, there's not really a counter, so we go for the second best. And most teams don't really draft that much outrange with Jinx, right? So not really like Jinx, Justana, whatever. So Aphelios is not going to get as cocked. And there's going to be a lot of melee champions for Aphelios to still play. As long as we have a little bit of backline access, we're going to be fine, right? I understand that. I think that's okay. right? I don't think Aphelios into Jinx is necessarily horrible, but I do prefer the Jinx side. I do prefer the Jinx side. If you have Tristana here, I think Golden Guardian's Giga on mega outscales. But you picked Jace into hard engage. Nice. I love it. Picking Jace into engage. So in a way, for me, like when even if you have Maokai, which is like front and back, right? Picking Jace, Maokai, Jinx on me is really weird. Because when they have Aphelios and you have Jinx, they're already incentivized to engage. You're already outranging. They need to engage. So going for outrange in the way of poke is weird for me. Going for outrange in the way of front and backing with another AD carry for me makes a lot of sense. Going into the way of outranging with poke is weird because they will have to pick engage. If they don't pick engage, they will lose. If they pick engage and tanky units now, well, Jace is useless. So what do you pick Jace for? Well, if you pick Jace to get pushy mid lane, or you could just pick Tristana. And if you're going to tell me that Jace doesn't get countered as hard as Tristana, well, you're lying to yourself because it's basically the same. Except that Jace is more vulnerable than Tristana is. And Tristana's just way better into Aphelios. Jinx is just way easier plug and play carry that will always DPS, yes. Aphelios needs proper setup. You need to learn Aphelios. Any player can play Jinx. Jinx is a very, very basic champion. Jinx doesn't have a lot of mechanics. Jinx is all about AD carry fundamentals. Of good positioning, right? Sort of like, being a little bit split off from your team, right? Like 45-degree angle, possibly on the other side of enemy flank, right? That is what you can do, so you can bomb without them being able to come to you, without sort of having to run past your teammates or whatever, right? Possibly able to count into choke points afterwards, so it's easy for you to hit. They can't really flank you, right? I feel like Jinx is all about AD carry fundamentals. And to learn about positioning, I think two of the best AD carries to watch for positioning are Crowny and, of course, Ruler. Right? Ruler is probably the best. But if you're looking at EU AD carries, Crowny is one of the best AD carries when it comes to positioning. Alright, seems like there aren't any questions, though. Quick summary basically is... For me, it's a bit weird that Blaber goes for top lane gank. Not a big fan. I'd rather prioritize getting level 6, making sure you're instantly able to stomp mid lane because they pick Jace instead of Tristana. GG. Make sure they really regret that choice. And then Silas fighting the bot lane room, getting Lost Chapter right now just makes the game really hard to play. Because now Silas can more actively actually contest mid lane push. I really like C9 not contesting Herald and just going for the cross map. Very, very big fan. And mostly that there was like 1 or 2 fights that basically just decided the game. 1 or 2 fights into being able to take Herald and then you just win the game. You get a little bit more again. They end up getting Herald, but it doesn't really matter. Wait, where do they use Herald again? Ah yeah, I remember. It's mid lane. You don't respect a turn. Now C9 gets ahead. They end up getting soul points. And then just strong enough to just start Nash. GG. And he picked Fiora. Unlucky. Alright. Then for the YouTube people, check out the socials link below this stream. And hopefully see you guys in game 2 of the review of Golden Guardians Cloud 9. In case you're interested in his coaching, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And yeah, see you guys in game 2 analysis.